So good afternoon. How are you?
Great. Thank you for coming.
Very good. With CBRN North in Everett, Washington, on the 24th of May, 2018. And I'm going to talk with Christian Business Referral Network a little bit about this concept that I'm developing that we talked about during the conference last month. And then we'll carry it forward in the coming weeks. I call it the 4 windows of knowing. So imagine a matrix, a 2x2 matrix. On the vertical axis is known and unknown, and on the horizontal axis is known and unknown. And when you were a child, an infant, you did not know that you did not know how to ride a bicycle. It was an unknown unknown. Mm-hmm. But very quickly, as you became a toddler, you saw all these people riding a bicycle, and clearly that's something that big kids do.
Yep.
And it was a known unknown. I don't know how to ride a bicycle, but I want to. Mm-hmm. And you put in some effort, and you put in some learning, and it became a known known. I now know how to ride a bicycle. For all of us in this room, we no longer know how to ride a bicycle. It is a known unknown. I know that I know how to ride a bicycle, but I don't know. It's an unknown known. I know how to ride a bicycle, but I don't know how I know how to ride a bicycle. I just go ride a bicycle. And I use the bicycle analogy to make sure that it's clear in our minds the difference between a known unknown and an unknown known. In the spiritual realm, and because we're talking with Christian Business Referral Network, I share the spiritual component of that 4 windows of knowing. I'm convinced more and more that our challenge with the way we practice our faith is God is talking to us all of the time, and yet we're not hearing it because we're allowing all of the noise of the world to inundate us. Mm-hmm. And we're doing good things, but they're not actually the things that He's calling us to do. And so what He's telling us in that still small voice is an unknown unknown to us.
Right.
As we deliberately listen and become aware of the promptings of the Spirit, then those unknown knowns become unknown unknowns become known unknowns, or unknown knowns. We know that we need to obey, and now then we're free to choose to be obedient or not. Mm-hmm. Until we're even aware of it, we can't take an action. And now I'll make a transition to talking about marketing. I'll come back to the matrix of known and unknown in just a moment. In 1950, you, a person who was existing in the world, had access to a finite amount of information. You had a set of encyclopedias in your house, and you had a subscription to the World Book, and there were 2 or 3 local newspapers, and you subscribed to one of them. And there are 3 or 4 local radio stations, and you listen to one. Maybe you switch channels once in a while, but you kind of picked one and stayed with it. And then there's 4 or 5 national level magazines, and you maybe have a subscription to 2 of them. Mm-hmm. But most of them are sharing overlapping pieces of stories anyway. They just have a little bit slightly different bias in the way they tell the story. So you're really getting the same information. So you think of all the information that's available in the world, you're getting somewhere between 50 and 75% of what's happening. And you've got a pretty good sense of what's happening in the world that you exist in. Along comes the 1990s, and suddenly we have 200 channels of cable TV. And there's no way you can channel hop fast enough to get exposure to everything. Right. And so you still only have 24 hours a day to access information. but there is hundreds of hours of information available every day, and you have to take a pick, because basically on that chart, the amount of information you can access is flat.
Right.
Because you only have two sets of eyes to read or listen, and you
so many seconds in a day.
Right. And then comes the internet age, and we have tens of thousands of new web pages opening every single day, and there's this massive amount of information, and none of us is accessing it. For us as marketers, whether we're trying to convince someone to be a guest presenter on one of our podcasts, or whether we're looking for someone to make a donation to our organization, or whether we're looking for somebody to buy our product, we have this challenge of this massive amount of information that potential person has access to, and they're only accessing this narrow window.
Yeah.
So the challenge is, from a marketing perspective, is how do you get the piece of information you want them to know and get it to them into the window that they're looking at the time they're looking and the time they're interested.
And in a way that will catch their attention.
And it has to be compelling.
Yeah.
Most of the people that you're trying to talk to are in relation to the story you're trying to tell them, existing in a world of unknown, or possibly known unknown.
Yeah.
They might know about you, but they don't know how it affects them, and so therefore it's still not a known. And the reason that's significant is the reason that the four windows of knowing is related to this challenge, this noise challenge of the market environment, the information environment that all of our audiences exist in. Is we're trying to get them to have a known, and they are so inundated by other stuff that even if they are the perfect person to hear our message, they're not hearing it. So my job as a marketing consultant is to help you find channels, and this conversation is a channel, but it can be done wrong. You can walk in here, you cannot have a message, you cannot have a compelling, interesting way to say it, and people walk out and they still don't know what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
You can have a $1 million budget and you can buy a Super Bowl ad, and people a month later are talking about that amazing Super Bowl ad, and they don't know which company sponsored it.
Yeah.
Right? Everywhere in between, because you're at that point, that Super Bowl ad sponsor has only added to the noise. They have not communicated.
Wow.
So
True.
Or at least not their message.
They have not communicated the message they were trying to communicate, right? Then they didn't pay that $1 million to get on a Super Bowl ad as a charity, out of the goodness of their heart. They did it for the purpose of trying to reach an audience.
They entertained, but they didn't inform.
They entertained but did not inform. That's a great way to say it. Okay, so thank you for listening to my discussion of the four windows of knowing, and how the fact that our audiences live in a world inundated by information causes them to exist with relation to the message that we're trying to share in a situation of unknown, or at best known unknown.